Welcome. I'm Halcyon. This is Hug Nation. Happy Halloween. Today the topic is standing with Standing Rock and the collapse of America. And maybe I will take this off so we don't confuse anything I say with silliness or pretend or make-believe. Although, it certainly is scary. Okay, enough. So, I started today doing some stretching and listening to an Alan Watts lecture, and he was discussing, as he often does, about how the world is just, well, the universe is just one thing. It is all an extension, an expression of this divinity, and from that perspective, nothing can be bad. It's all part of this game, this light, dark, black, white, hard, soft. All of existence is part of this perfect expression. And that can be very difficult to get your head around or accept when there's so much suffering and there's so much horrible things. But, you know, what is horrible to the cabbage is thriving life for the snail. So it's hard to put judgment on the oneness of all things and the interaction of all things. So how quickly I snapped from that peace and perfection as I settled into the news of the day and once again kind of got caught up in the Facebook posts and articles and videos of the world. And specifically right now I've become really obsessed with Standing Rock and the pipeline. And the reason why I think it's gotten me so worked up is because it's so obvious. It's so black and white. It's such this harsh, clear example. I almost feel like I'm being tested. You know, I got back from Burning Man and I was more optimistic than I've ever been in my entire life. I felt like humanity had hope. And if you saw those videos right when I got back, I mean, I was so on fire and so thriving and so excited in ways that I never have been before. And then it's almost like the universe wanted, like okay, now let's test your faith. And the election and the harshness and the public, you know, divisiveness in our culture and it just be like, whoa, like okay, keep the optimism, even though this is the most discouraging climate that I can remember being a part of. This is this wake-up call to the world that I thought I was living in, or the America I thought that I was living in, is not that way, at least not coast to coast and not in every neighborhood. And then to turn the volume up on the just, what is this Dakota Pipeline? And I think one of the reasons, well, I'm going to go through several of the reasons or some of the things that have been going through my head of why this is so significant and why I can't stop thinking about it and talking about it. And one of the reasons is because it is so black and white. You know, you look back at like Occupy Wall Street and there was a lot of confusion, you know. What exactly are you protesting? You know, what exactly do you want? Like, I know that you're frustrated and you don't like what's happening, but, you know, has any laws been broken? You know, I mean, why don't you go and deal with this in the courts? You know, go through your congressman, get laws passed. We have a system for change. Why don't you do that? Why are you breaking the law and staying in a park? And why are you complaining when we try to enforce the laws and clean up the park? Blah, 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 blah. But in this situation, it's so clear. It's so black and white. First of all, it's not a protest. And I so appreciate the clarification and the detailed wording that is being used by the water protectors and being very clear that this is not a protest. This is not, we're not saying this, you know, we're not against the salaries of CEOs. We're not against a war. We are protecting something. We are protecting something that we believe we have the rights to. And that significant difference, I think, is one of the reasons why this can't be dismissed in the same way that every march can, and everybody that's got a grievance within some conflict. This is different. This is a protection. It is a minority group trying to get a treaty recognized. Not passed, not arguing that they want to change. They just say, wait, we already have this deal. Can we just honor this deal? And the deal, I mean, so there's this legal aspect that is very clear. And there's a great article in The Atlantic that I've been linking to, and I'll put the link again, where it talks about what's the legal background behind this. Because there is a difference between fighting for your values and fighting for the environment, because there's all sorts of pressures that have to do with commerce and having to do with the laws. And if you get kind of beat in the legal system, it's much harder to fight for things, because all you can really do is protest, because the laws are in favor of the oppressor. But here's a situation where actually it seems like the laws are not obviously in favor of the oppressor. In fact, they originally went to the courts and tried to get an injunction, I'm not good at legal terms, but tried to work with the courts. And instead of waiting for the courts to decide, the project moved forward and destroyed some areas that were in question, potentially could have been burial grounds, and potentially could have been important archaeological sites. So with that scenario, now these protectors are put in a situation of like, whoa, one, we're right. Two, we've been pushed around forever in horrific ways. You're gonna push this? You're gonna take this away? This one? I mean, who hasn't seen Poltergeist? Who doesn't know that you gotta at least acknowledge and recognize Native American burial sites? It's like Hollywood and cartoons are all combining to just go, can we make this as surreal and insane and horrific as possible? So now, all that being said, the stance that they're taking in public has to do with being, water protectors. And I think that is really appealing to, our sense of right and wrong. But it's not the same as the legal battle, because there's all sorts of right and wrong happening in the world. And just because someone who's Native American says you should stop polluting, that doesn't mean it deserves the government to step in. But the situation with the legality of the treaty and the agreements in the past, that is actually, that is hardcore law of the land stuff that is, we can't just dismiss with a hand wave. So, but within the realm of the right and wrong of this scenario, could it be more black and white? You've got good guys and bad guys. You've got the Native Americans, oppressed people, standing up not just for the water for their children, but for the water for the children's children of America, standing up, protecting the environment. And on the other side, you've got multinational corporations backed by trillions of dollars, 20-something banks, trying to push the oil agenda. It's like Avatar. It's like a cartoon. It's like black hats and white hats. It's so obvious who the good guys and the bad guys are. I mean, maybe someone could make the case for, why these banks are actually, the good that they're going to do for the economy. I mean, I saw some online where they were showing some of these commercials, these anti-protest commercials that are being put out. And there's one ad that says, there's many jobs at stake building this pipeline. Let the workers finish their job. It's like, what? Is that the pro of their argument? That there are people employed to build this pipeline, and by stopping them, we're taking away Americans' jobs? What? Oh my gosh. So another thing that is just like, really is the timing of it. The poetic timing that last week there was a day when, while there were demonstrators, water protectors getting hit by rubber bullets, getting sprayed by tear gas, while that's happening, the headline going along the bottom of the screen is saying the Oregon militia guys who took over the federal building with guns threatening violence against the United States, those guys acquitted. What? How can you deny the racism and the white privilege in action in the United States when those two actions, those two events happening parallel? Are they exactly the same? Of course not. Are they the same enough to make you go, ooh, whoa? You think this would be the same if it was Native people taking over? You think it'd be the same if it was a bunch of white guys protecting their, like their fields? No! And get this, as crazy and as comical and as over the top as that timing was of that day, another part of this landscape is at the exact same time of this, we've got the whole Build a Wall movement. We've got this massive amount of activated people, white people, who are angry about the Somalians moving into their neighborhood. They're angry about all these people who are different from them, that look different from them, that are coming in and taking over their neighborhood. There's a great new This American Life that goes into the current state of the Republican Party. And one of the things they do is they go to a city in Minnesota and try to get in the heads of how people are so angry about immigration now as opposed to other times. And it's like the things that they're saying are like, whoa. One of the congressmen, it was in this town hall meeting, he was like, the people were saying, we want a moratorium on immigrants. We want no more immigrants in our town or even in the U.S. And he's like, it's not really how America works. They're here legally. In America, you don't have the right to decide who can and can't move into your city, and you can't move into a city and then close the door behind you and say nobody else. And why that is even more insane in the landscape of what we're talking about is these are the Native Americans. These are the people who were here first. And while these people who demonstrate everything about being kicked out by immigrants, we are saying, how dare you immigrants come in? It's like, I can't even articulate the insanity. Another part of this that has got my goat is, we've kind of gotten used to seeing these examples of police brutality. And with all the cell phone cameras out there, more and more we're seeing examples of people being brutalized by law enforcement. And it's often people of color. And anyone in that community says, yeah, it's always been that way. And I think that's clear that we're kind of becoming aware that it's always been that way. And there's always been these bad apples, these examples of people who do bad, and the thin blue line has protected these people, and it's just the way it is. And we're slowly kind of starting to find enough opposition and enough transparency that we might be making a shift and maybe making things a little bit better. Maybe I kind of had a little bit of that hope. And even within that horrific scenario, it's the bad apples, right? It's these examples of bad cops. Most cops are good. And most officials and people in power will condemn the negative acts, the aggressive violence, the unnecessary brutality. But when we look at the footage from Standing Rock, when we see people getting hit by rubber bullets, and when we see people being, old women having their prayer sticks yanked from them as they're knocked around with batons, and you see this like over-the-top violence against these peaceful people, where's the outrage? Where's the voices of our leaders saying, okay, clearly that's wrong. We've got some overly aggressive people. On the contrary, we have police forces from other areas coming in. We've got the National Guard coming in. We've kind of got a unified front from the official stance saying we're on the side of the corporate oil pressure. And that is really scary and frustrating, because maybe it's because of the timing of the election, and maybe it's because, you know, politicians, this is really kind of highlights the ugliness of politicians, and that if to win in politics, you have to find the way that the crowd is running and get in front of them. You know, don't take a stand on things. Anything controversial, avoid as much as possible. You give an answer that doesn't commit you to anything. And I think that right now, politicians don't know what the most damaging stance is in this, so they're afraid to take a stand. And because of the closeness of the election, I think that there's this fear of like, wow, what's the, you know, right now, well, this could go badly, you know, if we get too involved. So maybe we can just like pretend like we don't see it until after the election. Hillary did issue a statement, but it was like, we recognize that this is a problem that needs to be resolved. It's like, and it's frustrating because, you know, as I was just kind of getting at peace with, not happy with, but at peace with the fact that in this election, as disappointed as I am that, you know, my dream candidate didn't get the nomination, and as I've come to terms with what I believe to be the strategy required to avoid what I believe to be a worse future, I've come to terms with that lesser of two evils stance, which is the same thing as saying the better of two choices, so I don't want to get into that. But it's like, who's come out and said something? Bernie Sanders has been very vocal that we need to step in. He's been trying to, you know, take a stance. And it's just this like, it's this extra bright high beam on this scenario in American politics where the people who fight for values, the people who take a stand, the people who are willing to kind of fight for the little guy do not have the power to win in this country for, you know, for whatever. Oh God, it's just like. And I'll say that, you know, I'm not so frustrated that I believe voting doesn't matter. I still believe it matters, but I'm starting to get into that frustrated place where I don't think voting can fix anything. It can just kind of maybe avoid things getting much worse. I know that's not a very inspiring thing, but it's still important to vote, and I hope that you vote, and I hope that, I mean, everyone makes their own decisions, and I've spoken at length at how I feel and the strategy that I think that's required, and I think that with the danger that's on the table with I don't want to talk about this anymore. So, back to Standing Rock. And that's another thing that is so that's so hard about this scenario is that, you know, like I grew up looking at footage of, you know, civil rights marches and people getting sprayed by hoses and dogs being let on, you know, demonstrators in the civil rights movement. And it's black and white footage, and you kind of think like, wow, how bad it used to be. How close-minded we used to be. Wow, we like how naive and ignorant we were to treat human beings like this. Or you see footage from Nepal, or you see footage from Egypt, and you see like protesters being, you know, brutalized, and you think about, wow, like, thank God we're not in a place like that. And then you see this footage from Standing Rock, and you go, this is now, this is here, this is us. It's embarrassing. I remember going to, I was in Australia earlier this year, and people were they're trying to understand, like, so can you help me understand, like, how is Trump a legitimate candidate? And that's before the movement was quite this strong. I mean, and like, I can remember growing up and believing that America was the defenders of freedom in the world. And as I got older and I saw this more and more involved in international politics and sending our forces into different places, like, well, right, because we are the righteous ones. We are the ones who are defending freedom. We're the ones that are spreading democracy. We are the defenders of righteousness. And then you learn a little bit more, and you learn a little bit more, and you get some historical context to things, and you go, wait a minute. And that is what is so hard, I think, for me, and why I'm struggling so much to just like shake it off, is like, it's like this last straw. This like, the issues are so black and white. It's so obvious that the corporate banking oil is in control and the people are not. And so this story that I had about America is being a bright light shining. No, here's the proof. You know, here's our test scenario. Maybe you know more. Maybe it was kind of complicated. Maybe the syphilis experiments. Maybe there was other things going on. Maybe maybe there was. This is like, it's happening right now. It's so obvious. It's so black and white. You've got almost like a control group. It's like, nope. Here's the proof. Corruption and power structures in place. The military and the police are defending the money, not the people. Like, America. So, all that being said, I'm not giving up. I went to Bank of America this morning, and I waited to see the banker who has been very nice to me in the past. I've had good experience with the Bank of America, but they're one of the 20-something banks that is involved in funding this. They're a smaller one. The big one is Citibank. Get out of Citibank if you can. Wells Fargo is also involved. A lot of international banks, but Bank of America is involved. So went in, and I could have gone to. I also have money in a credit union, and so I could have gone to the credit union and just written a check for, to move my money over. But I wanted to go make a showing and make a statement and have a. So I moved the majority of my money, so I still have enough to pay off bills and things that are coming in. But I moved my money to a credit union to try to vote with my dollar, and I urge everyone to do the same. I mean, that's something that matters in the eyes and the motivations of the corporate structure. They need our money in chunks of $5, $10, $100,000, $10,000, $100,000 chunks to make up the trillions. It takes a lot of us, but it matters. I'm also trying to give money here and there. There's a bunch of people raising money for it, so it's worth doing a little bit of research. I'm not ready to, vouch for anyone. I think I've given some to the Red Lightning organization, which is a Burning Man camp that is kind of our sister camp next to us on the Esplanade, and they have a group that is bringing things there and building structures and using some of their skills and knowledge about temporary community and structures and feeding people, and trying to bring that to help protect and build things that will help out in the wintertime. So I gave some to them, and we'll find other organizations to try to support from afar. If I can't imagine that my physical presence there would be of aid, but it's not off the table, because I think it's an important line in the sand. And I think that there is a chance that our leaders will step up and will be able to hold on to a little bit of pride in being an American, feel a shred of righteousness. Otherwise, I've got to retreat to that high-level spirituality of light and dark, hard, soft, oppressor, oppressed, and the cosmic dance is one that I am not to judge, but simply to observe and follow my heart and act as I should in the next moment. And appreciate this grand classroom as a place where we can work through our frustrations, work through our issues. Clearly, by being activated in this moment, this is an opportunity for me to do inquiry. Is there some part of me that needs to be more courageous, needs to be less afraid? Is there a part of me that needs to be more loving? Is there a part of me that has anxiety about elements of this? What in this scenario, what in this activated state am I in, do I have an ability to utilize this darkness as a classroom? Of course, I will gladly forego any credit for this class and stay in an, if we could just maybe get some progress and love on the front lines. So I really hope that humanity shows us that they are amazing and as a whole, because clearly humanity is amazing as an individual level. One thing that if you watch footage from people on the front lines, you know, I mean, there's this intense messaging and this talk about love and about holding space and about prayer and about, you know, even when they're yelling at the police, it's kind of like it's trying to get them to see, like, this is your land, this is your water, you know, your family is, does your family want you to be doing this? You know, you are a human being, you're a part of this family, and do you really want to just do your job at the expense of your ability to sleep at night? Ah, yes, I wish I could wrap this up with a bow and say, and that is how all will be well in the world. Instead, I'll say, and that is how we must acknowledge that there is always darkness in the world. There is always suffering in the world. And our job is not to rid the world of darkness and suffering. Our job is to work on ourselves and then to shine light, alleviate suffering in each small act that we do. And not seeing a crowd of hungry people and realize I have to end hunger because they're going to be hungry tomorrow. But instead go, oh man, I've got 12 sandwiches. That's 12 opportunities to do good in the world, to be kind, to spread light. And just have faith that if we all play our part, the magic tapestry will come out beautifully. On behalf of Grandpa Caleb and all the Love Warriors, Happy Hug Nation, I love you.